Hello, welcome to SquishiVision. It's been a while, I think, since I've done a reaction video, primarily because I've been busy doing some photojournalism and all the time spent editing that, and I've not really had a chance. Also, I've not really been watching anything that I've kind of needed to do a reaction video to. Mostly been filling my time catching up on classic Doctor Who and X-Men. And being poorly, so I'm very thirsty. What was I saying? Yeah, basically doing a lot of photojournalism, nothing really happening. There were a few videos I should have done a reaction video to. I might still do that later today if I get the time to. Amongst all the other photo editing I've got to do. But Rings of Power is back. Kind of, I don't know if it was just, it's probably me. I didn't really wasn't really like following it coming back so much. I don't think there was the same amount of kind of furor about the second season as was the first season. I think I vaguely saw the trailer be revealed and then didn't actually watch the trailer because of all the aforementioned things. Anyway, it's back. It came on Thursday. There's 3 episodes out. I don't know if they all got released the same day or if it's like releasing every day or whatever. I'm going to slowly catch up to it as best I can. So I just finished watching the first episode of season 2, which is Elven Kingdoms of the Sky. Pretty much restart where we left off, which I kind of had to remind myself of by reading all the synopses on the Lord of the Rings wiki because I kind of forgotten what the plot was. When did season 1 come out? It must have been like 2 years ago now, right? Yeah, it was 2 years ago. That's probably why I've forgotten a lot about it because a lot happens in 2 years. You get me. So yeah, we pick up pretty much. Well, actually, no, we get a brief look back at Sauron's backstory, I guess. Not really a backstory, but now that we've got all the revelations out the way that they are Sauron, we're able to now kind of clarify some of the timeline. So essentially, we get an old Sauron who looks completely different just after the fall of Morgoth. And Morgoth, am I saying that right? Because if I don't say it right, some nerd is going to come and skin me alive. Morgoth. Yeah, Morgoth. Shortly after the fall of Morgoth, trying to rally the orcs to their crusade, and no one's really having it. He kind of puts down one assassination attempt, but then we see Ada and their connection to Sauron. Basically, as Collider puts it, Julius Caesar them by doing the first stab. Top tip: don't make your crown a super spiky object because you open yourself up to very late stage assassinations, which is what happens here. Basically, they got the very spiky crown. It was pretty cool kind of visual, and plunged it into the back of this guy's neck. He did a good attempt at like kind of throwing off a lot of the attacks, but eventually kind of succumbs, so to speak. But Sauron is much more than just a mortal being, and it takes much more than a whole bunch of stabbing to end them. So the mortal body dies, but they move on. It's just really like freaky visual of their blood kind of seeping through stone, traveling large distances over a unclear amount of time, becoming this, well, essentially becoming a mixture of the sludge creature from that killed Lieutenant Tar in Star Trek and Venom, and basically absorbing a bunch of living creatures until they're able to take the form of a person again. This is when they become the version of Sauron who we were familiar with at the end of the last season. And we get a brief backstory, brief look about how they got that herald of the Sutherlands, and basically got onto a ship, got shipwrecked, got in the middle of the ocean on that raft, and that's when they meet Galadriel. And then we jump forward basically where we leave off. Elrond is like, yo, these rings of power are hecka sus. ain't about that life. Let's go and tell Gilgalad about it. And so he and Galadriel race towards Gilgalad. He gets there first, but Gilgalad actually sides with Galadriel more out of like being like, well, this isn't ideal, but I kind of agree with you. It's the only way forward we've got. And Elven is like, well, when you're between a rock and a very large drop, you take the very large drop and you jump off a waterfall. I realize I'm just recapping the episode here rather than necessarily reacting to it. I'll get to that in a second. I think possibly. I think mostly because I'm trying to remind myself it's been like an hour since it happened. I was got distracted by other things. He then goes to what's their name? Caradan. I never know if I'm pronouncing that right or not. Caradan? The ship, famous Elven shipbuilder, who seems on their side at first and goes to destroy the rings by throwing them into this part of the ocean, which they reckon is probably going to destroy it. But fate intervenes, essentially, is what happens, and they think better, and it seems to be the right course of action towards it. I mean, a lot of this is like dramatic irony because we know what's going to happen. It's the nature of it being a prequel, so we know the rings aren't going to be destroyed, and we know things are going to turn out well. But a lot of the kind of bad things that happen under their own hubris. But we have that moment which is basically recreating the prologue scene of the Lord of the Rings films, where we see all the three of the elves. I don't know, three hands to demonstrate it. Three of the elves, having just doffed the rings, stand in a circle and place them outstretched. And at that point, the tree lights up again. It seems to confirm that this is the right course of action. But there's a clear schism now between the elves that's been created, which is arguably Sauron's plan. And then Sauron arrives to go speak to Celebrimbor, who, despite being warned about not treating with Halbrand again, seems to be treating with Halbrand again. I imagine actually because they haven't received a message yet about Halbrand to Sauron. And that's kind of the play of things there. There was a lot of like Shakespearean drama at hand with the Elven kind of plot line that I'm enjoying. A lot of like kind of politics and dramatical irony and that flaunty kind of attitude that honestly is kind of what you want from what you want from this. Sorry, I'm distracted by I always get distracted by my own Stream Deck buttons and being like, what can I do to like improve this? And I'm like, Harris, you're streaming, you should do this like at a different time. But it does distract me. Mainly because a whole bunch of new things are being pushed out and I'm trying to work out how I can make this more streamlined. Anyway, what was I saying? So that's their plotline. We get a bit more with Sauron and Ardar. Sauron basically gives themselves over as a prisoner of war to Ardar, but it's clear that they're simply just doing that to like trick people and like get a lay of the land. It's not clear what he kind of achieves by doing so. Well, actually, no. He frees a bunch of Silverland people in the process. It's not clear why, but he does so. And we get a bit more of Ada's backstory and who they are. Some more of the brutality of both sides are being kind of fed in here. the difficulty of being a neurodivergent person streaming and just getting distracted by my own thoughts in my brain. This is why I do gaming things more often. I don't get distracted as much. No, I will say something. I don't think these episodes need to be an hour and 20 minutes. They're basically mini films, each per episode. There's 8 of them. But I don't think enough happens. They're very at least this episode feels very stretched out, and not nearly enough happens to kind of justify the length of which it goes on for. At least is how I feel. Because I'm trying to think of what things to react to. I'm like, well, gosh, not a huge amount actually happens. Because even like thinking about Sora and Ada's story, we get reminded about the kind of. I mean, to be fair, a lot of the visuals are beautiful. Seeing like Proto Mordor is really entertaining. Seeing the cinematography of other parts of Middle Earth, like there's nothing about any of this show which looks ugly. Everything in the show looks phenomenal, like amazingly good. But I'm trying to remember back 2 years ago, and I can't. But I think the plotline 2 years ago justified the length of per episode, if it was in fact that long per episode last season, because there was like so many plot lines going on per episode. But it made sense. You're kind of watching several episodes in one. Here we're watching 3 things happen, 2 of which were basically B stories, of which very little happens. You know, Sauron spends most of his time being tortured, and you get the implication that Sauron is planning something, and that's fine. But you don't really see, you know, him being in a prison cell for like a long period of time. Even like Ada doesn't really do much apart from like mention stuff. We get some nice scenes with the stranger and with Nori, but then again that's very B story stuff. And also being followed by someone who seems to be out of the wrong genre, which is interesting. And it's kind of a repeat of last season where the stranger was being followed by mysterious beings that ultimately didn't really accomplish, but didn't have a much. I mean, they appeared simply just to be like, "You must be Sauron," and the stranger's like, "No, I'm not Sauron. I'm obviously Gandalf," except when they end up being red herring and not actually Gandalf, kind of deal. And you've got these other beings who are like doing the same kind of thing. I'm not being very coherent here. Give me a break. This is the first time I've streamed in like a while. I'm just trying to. The problem is it's hard to really give like a lot of detailed reactions to a episode when very little actually happens in it. But it's a very well crafted show. Like it sounds like a lot of criticism. It is very. I think the pacing is like the opposite of rushed, which is to say too slow. But it is a beautifully put together show. People clearly care about like the characters. There's a lot of like intensity in the acting, which I appreciate. Which is hard because the elves very much are Vulcan coded in Lord of the Rings, so they tend to be like above those extreme displays of emotion. So there is a degree of blandness that you have to excuse in how Galadriel acts, and how Elrond acts. So you don't really get a sense of this is a close, intimate friendship which is being fractured. I guess that's kind of a critique there, but it's like, how do you balance that between that part of it and the fact that they are kind of very above that emotion element? So there is that. But like visually it's very well, it looks beautiful, like there's a detail, like I'm not a massive critic of the Hobbit films, but in hindsight I have to agree with a lot of criticism in that it does look very murky and very mushy in terms of the visuals. It doesn't quite capture the more raw, grounded parts of the Lord of the Rings films, and this does. This looks like the Lord of the Rings films, Lord of the Ring films if they're made in the 2020s, which essentially is what they are. So I can give that to it. Anyway, the 2 episodes to watch. Probably not watch them today. Probably will watch them. Well, I might watch another one later on today. And then we might watch. I mean, tomorrow I'm LARPing, So probably not tomorrow, but down the line. Um, I've got a bunch of things I need to react to. I might do one now, then take a break, or maybe I'll get them all out done in one go. I don't know. I have stuff I should be doing, but I can't really do want to catch up. So we'll end it here. We'll jump on to the next thing, and I'll see you all when I see you all. I also need to work out how to get backing track to work because the stream keeps freezing, but whatever. Okay. Goodbye.